It is 5 p.m. and I'm Rob Watt, and I'm calling the special joint meeting of the City of Snoqualmie Public Safety Committee and the North Bend Public Health and Safety Committee to order. And we'll do roll call a little differently this evening. We'll start with Councilmember Cotton from Snoqualmie.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Mark Joslin from the City of North Bend.
Present.
Chair Christine Restig from North Bend.
Present.
Councilmember Kara Christensen from Snoqualmie.
Here.
Mayor Mary Miller of North Bend.
Present.
Mayor Catherine Ross, City of Snoqualmie.
I am here.
City Administrator Mike Chambliss.
Here.
City Attorney from Snoqualmie.
Here.
Dina Burke. Sorry,
Here.
Dina Burke. We'll do that again. Can we go back and edit? No, we can't. And then City Clerk from Snoqualmie,
I'm present.
Dina Dean. Thank you. All right. Well, with that, I will move on to our agenda approval from the joint committee. Are there any additions or corrections to the agenda as presented, council members? Hearing none, we will accept the agenda as presented. This is the next point that we move to is the public comments. Those are limited to those that come in person. If you happen to be online listening through YouTube or through Zoom tonight, you may submit those to our clerk, Clerk Dean, and or to me, and we'll make sure that those get addressed. So with that, I close public comment and we move on to tonight's big topic. And we have Interim Chief Bracey here with the Police 2024 Annual Report.
Good evening, Mayor Ross, Mayor Miller, council members, and all guests. Tonight, I'm going to go over our 2024 annual report for both cities of Snoqualmie and North Bend. And I want to say thank you for all your support right up front. And this isn't, this is everything we've accomplished over the year is in part to y'all's support. So this report reflects our commitment to transparency, accountability, and service to excellence. One more. So this first page here is a letter from the chief. And I'm going to highlight some of the things that we kind of address in here. And the first being 2024, we lost 7 officers due to various reasons. So we put a huge focus on hiring. I'm proud to say that over the 2024 year and up until last week, we have fully hired our patrol staff. So my patrol staff is 100% fully staffed. With that said, some of them are still in the academy. We have a graduation this week on Wednesday, which I'm excited for. And we'll have two on FTO after that. And then we have 2 graduating in May. And then I have 1 starting on March 10th. So there are a lot of good things that rolled from 2024 into 2025, and it is exciting for us. So the next page here, you're going to see our command staff. There's a little bit of change from 2023 to 2024. You're going to see the chief of police. My spot was filled in 2024. We created the administration sergeant. He has become a vital role in the administration roles of the agency. And then you have our administrative coordinator who handles everything and everything under the sun. This is a great team of people. And if you go to on the next slide, you're going to see our organizational chart. Part of this I'll kind of cover here with the administration sergeant has allowed us to free up others in the agency to play a vital role, which you'll see later in the presentation. To kind of cover our organizational chart, we have the chief of police, the administrative coordinator, the captain's position, 5 sergeants, 16 officers under 4 of those sergeants. And then we have the school resource officer, detective, mental health professional position, police support officer position, records/evidence technician, and our records technician. So we have a wide variety. Everybody is a vital role in the agency. The administration sergeant was able to take the duties from the patrol sergeants of managing the investigations, the MHP position, and the school resource officer position, and move them away so that the sergeants can focus on the road, focus on the community and the calls that we respond to. So the next one, we're going to cover kind of a breakdown of what each division does. The patrol division is a 24/7 response for both cities. They respond to what we classify as routine calls for our community members and for any emergency calls as well, be a 911 or, those who call in on our non-emergency line, but then during that call process, we determine it is an emergency. They also patrol both cities for all the people who not only call this home, but for those and the many that come here to live, work, and play. We have a lot of visitors, and we service them as well as while they're here in our cities. The investigations unit obviously handles any and all major investigations, property crimes, economic crimes, violent crimes, special assaults. He works with outside resources as well, to include the Major Crimes Task Force that is established through the Coalition of Small Police Agencies. It's 12 agencies that put together several teams of investigators that respond to our cities. Then they also work with King County and he'll work with King County for mutual aid for the King County MARS, Guardian 1 if needed, K9 units if needed, and those are also available to our patrol division, but he coordinates a lot of that stuff during those major crimes or anything where his services are needed. He also works with State Patrol very closely for crime scenes. They bring out their teams and support us and do crime scene analysis on all major crimes that we contact them on. They're a phone call away. Our school resource officer works in collaboration with the school district. That position, it has an office space at the high school, but he floats between all of the schools in both cities. And he's even gone out to the Falls City Elementary and wherever he is needed based on those needs. He not only addresses issues of crime at the schools if it happens, but he's there to help build a relationship between the youth of our community and us. Bridging that gap, as we look at things over the years with, school shootings and things like that, he is there to help build those relationships so that there's somebody for them to rely on and that they can come in and knock on his door and say, hey, I just need help. That happens quite regularly, and I'm super proud of this position and what he has been able to do in it. Our police support officer. Our police support officer is one of the primary descriptions for that job descriptions for that position is our transport officer. They transport our in custodies, whether they're a fresh arrest from the cities to the jail or from the jails to our court for an inmate to be seen before a judge. So there's a pivotal role there, but that position also plays a pivotal role in all of our community events. They coordinate a lot of what happens in our community when we have an event such as National Night Out. We held we supported the Snoqualmie Valley Food Bank this year, which we'll talk about in a little bit, but she was a huge part in that coordination and helping provide additional services to our community in that role. Mental health professional. Our mental health professional is an awesome position. We are one of the few agencies in the state that are fortunate to have it. They play a pivotal role in providing additional services for those who are in crisis, who just need help, and or to help a family who has somebody in need. You'll see, you can skip to the next page. You'll see a few pictures here where they're out doing, the guys are out doing things, and the top one there is a mental health professional. She's out there helping somebody who is in crisis on the side of the road, and she had a lot of resources and a lot of connections outside to where she could get them help at a hospital with recovery, like with a recovery navigator program for housing, even if it's just to simply get an ID card so they can start getting benefits from the state. Then we have our administration services. Our administrative services is our records and evidence personnel. They are a vital role for us, and you'll see some of that here in a little bit. But they do case management. We have to do validations every month for the federal government, and they are constantly working on those numbers. So any case report that comes in, any arrest that's made, they start validating all of those all of the reports to make sure everything's correct for the federal government. They also do court orders, concealed weapons permits, public disclosure request, all of it. And we'll go into a little bit more of that here in just a second. So between both cities, North Bend and Snoqualmie, rough population combined is 21,518. The Snoqualmie Police Department responded to 11,861 calls for service this year, took 2,351 case reports, made 2,007 traffic stops, made 786 arrests, and wrote 537 infractions. It was a busy year. All of this, I'm going to break it down here on the next couple of slides. It's going to be a few slides, so I kind of break down the calls for service here in the next slides. And this goes back for 2022, 2023, and 2024. So for Snoqualmie, I'll start with the Snoqualmie side. Our calls for service in 2022, 7,099. In 2022, 7,079. In 2023, 6,378 in 2024. North Bend was 5,348 in 2022, 5,170 in 2023, and 5,483 in 2024. Overall, you're going to see approximately a 9.9% decrease in the calls for service for Snoqualmie. I contribute this part to a couple of things. One, the work of my guys being out on the road, being visible. And this is for both cities overall, because North Bend even is staying pretty status quo on the numbers. We're not seeing a huge increase in those numbers. Two is, and you'll see this in a little bit, since August, our police support officer has been out, and when she would do a transport, those numbers would get, a number for Snoqualmie would get pulled on all those transports to the jail. So you'll see where there's a drop in a little bit on another graph. It's about a 400 call decrease. But overall, when you look at it, it has a lot to do with the realignment of the department, allowing the 4 sergeants on the road to be out there, manage the road, and be visible. Visibility is a huge thing for us, and by freeing up those sergeants and not having to do what the administrative sergeant is doing has greatly helped us. So patrol incident statistics. Couple different colors here on this graph. DUI, I'll start with the DUIs. The DUIs are down for both cities from 2023 to 2024. And I think part of that is due to the visibility. We have the DV assaults. Those are going to vary no matter what throughout the year. We're staying pretty status quo, ranging from 15 to 20 for, between the two cities. And then our weapons offenses are about the same. They're staying pretty status quo, ranging from 6 to 10. Collision reports is where you're going to see a little bit of an increase in both cities. One is one of the reasons for that is we changed the way we report. We lowered the threshold to ensure that anything over $750 in damage collects or gets a report no matter what. This helps it helps the citizens and it helps those who are coming to our community just to have that documentation for insurance purposes and everything else. The only time that a report is not taken unless there's some kind of injury to a person is if it's on private property. Then an exchange of information may be done just to help them out. But that increase is likely due to us ensuring that everybody that's on the roadway with an estimated $750 in damage gets a report just so that they can have something to take to their insurance company. Theft statistics, next page. I am super proud of this for 2024. You're going to see that on shoplifts, both cities, there's been a decrease in shoplifts. For Snoqualmie, you'll see it went from 30 to 21, and North Bend is quite staggering from 133 to 82. Before I kind of go into the reason for that, of why I believe, I want to look at the other thefts, and they also dropped. And I contribute this to a couple of things. One, our visibility, our presence out there, and the dedication of the guys, the increase of the location at the new addition to the location there at the outlet mall, where the officers can respond and be there, be visible. And I think that has been a huge contributing factor to us decreasing those numbers overall. Vehicle prowls vary. Those are what we classify as crimes of opportunity. But we're staying pretty status quo. There's only 4 difference in North Bend, and we dropped 7 in on the Snoqualmie side. Those are more often than not somebody walking around looking for an opportunity, as I said, with a car door unlocked, things like that. That's where my big push for the community and our messaging is, please lock your doors. The likelihood of somebody breaking into through a glass window, not that it doesn't happen, but it's a lot less likely because they're afraid of somebody hearing them. Vehicle thefts are down. So Snoqualmie went from 17 to 11. North Bend went from 19 to 14. And I think overall these statistics for some of this, especially the vehicle thefts and things, the decrease I can contribute to our opening up of our pursuit policy. In June, we changed our pursuit policy and have started allowing for pursuits where previously the state said we couldn't pursue unless we hit certain standards. That allowing the officers to pursue and us actually doing that has let the community know, has let people who come here to commit crimes know we're not afraid to pursue you, and we will use every bit of what we can to catch you and stop you from committing crimes in our community. Burglaries are down in both cities. Snoqualmie went from 24 to 10 and 38 to 28 in North Bend. I contribute all of this again to the guys being visible, driving around, putting miles and miles and miles on our vehicles, and just being very visible to the community. We also see a decrease in our use of forces over the year. We had 14 total uses of force for 2024. It's a 62% drop from 2023. And of those 14 is 0.1% of our total calls for service. So a very, very, very small amount of our calls for service resulted in a use of force. The one thing I can contribute to this is part of the training that we're taking and we're requiring. We started in 2024 sending every officer to the 40-hour crisis intervention training. There's a guideline for us to send 25% of the agency, and it is my belief that we should have 100% compliance with that, so all of them go to it. And those classes teach things like de-escalation. The state also implemented a 3-day course for patrol tactics, which is hugely focused on de-escalation tactics and things like that. And the officers are applying that, which I think contributes to this reduce in our uses of forces and, just our total calls. So in the next page is our administrative services. This is where you're going to see exactly kind of how the administrative staff is their day-to-day operations go. Public records request for 2024 is for both cities that come to the police department for any case report or any information that involves the police department is 586 for 2024. We're not that far off from the previous 2 years at 617 for 2022 and 570, but that is a lot of work. It's a big load for them to carry. New concealed weapon permits licensing, that dropped. We only had 107 that came through the police department for this year, and that's for both cities. And then renewals was only at 116, so that too decreased. I'll wait till he gets in here now. We're on page 13.
Thank you. Sorry about that.
That's all right.
Thank you. If I may interrupt, we'll add to the record that Councilmember Alan Gottlieb just arrived. Thank you very much. At 5:22 p.m. Good evening.
Good evening.
So I'll continue with our active court orders. Those did increase a little bit. Those are obviously requested and or judge dependent on what goes through our court. And then this is where you'll see the prisoner transport drop. Like I said, since August, our PSO has been out of the office. And so you'll see that, and officers have been picking up on those transports and, filling that spot and making sure the transports are done. But she specifically drew a number for it where the officers have not been. So there's a little bit of a decrease in that. But overall, it kind of all of this goes, the one thing that increased drastically out of this was our evidence being booked. That's case dependent. We could get a big case where we have a bunch of items that have to be booked into jail or booked into our evidence room or property that was picked up that was left found. So any found property, things like that, bicycles, that all gets booked into this. So you're going to see those numbers in there. And that, like I said, that's just a dependency on what's reported and what is involved in the case. So this is the fun part of what we do, our community engagement. We're very big on community-based policing. As I stated earlier, we worked with the Snoqualmie Valley Food Bank and started doing a food drive for them and kind of partnered with them for that throughout the summer this year. We also teamed up with Snoqualmie Valley Ice Cream, Snoqualmie Fire, Eastside Fire, to reward those youth in both cities who were wearing their helmets while riding their bicycles and scooters. That was a very successful program, and Snoqualmie Ice Cream was gracious enough to participate in that and provide a free scoop of ice cream to those kids who received a safe rider citation from either us or the fire departments that saw them out and about. We also participated in events like Railroad Days, the North Bend Block Party, Festival of Mount Si, National Night Out, Boeing Classic, Red, White, and Boom. It was a very busy, busy year, and I don't see that changing for 2025, and we enjoy every bit of it. A lot of planning goes into those events, but it is where we can get, we're out and visible, as you can see on the next slide with, or your next page with the pictures that are out there, whether it's, even officers reading to the kids at the school. Go one more. So our accomplishments for 2024, the opening of the North Bend substation. That was huge, as you saw in some of those numbers earlier with the decrease in the calls, especially on the North Bend, in North Bend at the outlet mall, and just the guys being visible over there. We had a few promotions this year as well. So leadership appointments. We also appointed new officers in charge. So if a sergeant's off, there's somebody that steps up and helps, and is usually a senior officer that'll give guidance and things like that to each shift. We also increased our field training officer positions to help develop our new officers with the number that we've hired over the last several years. We also completed the LEMAP study, which provides us a roadmap for accreditation, which will be an ongoing project for the next, 3 to 5 years, give or take. And then we did a lot of policy updates and just kind of cleaning things up and just ensuring that we're following, the best practices and procedures throughout the state. Then, as I stated, we expanded our collaboration with the city and civic units, with the Safe Rider program. We increased our social media presence and started putting a lot more information out to the public. And we completed our collective bargaining agreements. So those were huge steps for us in 2024. The goals for 2025, we just started a remodel project at the police department. We hope to have that done in the next month. I want to increase our specialty positions, our instructors and things like that, where we can do more of our in-house training, such as defensive tactics, just to increase the number of guys I have that can help support that. Right now I have 1 defensive tactics instructor, and it's always good to have 2 or 3. We also we're looking at increasing our firearms instructor status by 2. And then we did some we were looking at fleet upgrades and completing some interlocal agreements to help both cities reduce our budget, reduce our expenses for long-term commits with Sunnyside Jail, which we are already contracted with, but we just need to finish up their renewal process, and then adding on the Yakima Jail to help reduce some of the expenses for both cities. We're also looking for Snoqualmie adding the DV advocate that North Bend has already established a contract with, and we hope to finish that up very soon. And then we're trying to get in a little more into the 21st century with our TASER platform. TASER decided to change platforms and not support one of the device that half the department carries. So we're looking at doing that upgrade as well, hopefully in the 2025 year, just to something that's more modern and supported by them. That kind of concludes this packet. What I will say is the officers do an amazing job. They can't do it without your support from either city. And everything that they do is done to benefit the safety and well-being of our community, not only those who live here, but those who come here to work and play. We're a very busy city, between both cities, we're very busy. A lot of people come and go, and our main goal is to making sure everybody is safe. And with that, I'll take any questions.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that, Interim Chief Parisi. I'll lead it off with some comments, because first of all, I want to thank City of North Bend, your public safety, public health and safety committee for being here, as well as the Mayor Pro Tem and Mayor. I think that tonight is a good first step in what we hope to do, and this is the word that came through our last council meeting, is we'd like to do these joint meetings on a quarterly basis so that we can be on the same page. And after I'm done with my remarks, I'm going to defer over to my counterpart, the North Bend Chair, Rustic, so she can add things as well. I think what's really important to point out is this has been a remarkable partnership between two sister cities that are side by side, having a robust police department. And I'd encourage anybody that's interested, please talk with the chief about arranging a ride along so that you can see. I did that when I first joined the council. I spent 8 hours in the night, and it was very enlightening to see what our officers do on a 24/7 basis, and it's pretty darn remarkable. I want to thank you for your partnership in the mental health specialist and the school resource officer. Those that we're one of the communities that really embraces this idea of having school resource officer. Not all communities feel this way, but we do strongly. It brings us stability. And the other thing that I learned from my ride along, and that's the local knowledge, having police officers that understand just kind of the timing of how things happen in the community makes us all safer. I think it's remarkable that we have 30, a police staff of 30 for the two communities. It allows us, by having these joint meetings too, as a coordination of ordinances to make it easier for those that are on the front line in policing. The other one is, as you know, I've been on the Regional Law, Safety, and Justice Committee, in part because I just need to learn a lot more about this whole idea of community policing and the things that, how we're integrated with King County and how we're dependent on them, and why we need to keep the King County Jail open, because there are forces trying to close it. And we made that strong message through the Law, Safety, and Justice Committee of the importance of keeping it open, because there's simply not enough beds. And that's one of the challenges that we have in this county. The second thing that I really wasn't aware of, and that's like domestic violence. So important, because having response to it timely is very critical, because without that, there are a lot of other underlying issues that come into play. And I wouldn't have known that had I not been involved in the committee there as well. So I think, you know, there's a collective research that's very valuable for us. And then also, I appreciate Susan Torgerson now being on the Regional Law, Safety, and Justice Committee. There's only 8 of us for 38 cities, and we have 2 representatives, which helps tremendously. So those are a few of my just remarks. But please, if you have the time, make the time, spend some time with our police force to see how they police, and especially after hours, because it'll give you a lot of sense of peace in what they do for our community to help keep it as safe as it is. With that, Chair Rustic, give you the opportunity to make
Well,
comments.
Thank you. If this is on, I think so. Yeah, thank you for that. And thank you for your presentation. I was very interested in some of the data, particularly, you know, being part of the move to the outlet mall, you know, just to kind of see exactly what were the impacts of that. And I'm very pleased to see that the data shows that that was a good solution for us. So
Was a great move for us.
yeah. And then just what you highlighted, because I'm not going to repeat some of the things you said, but what you highlighted about the community involvement and being really engaged with the community. I know certainly for North Bend, and I assume for Snoqualmie, that was very well received in 2024, and we really appreciate all of the visibility of the officers at some of these events. So thank you.
Thank you.
And certainly, Councilmember Watton, we would be more than happy to have more conversations about joint meetings. So
Excellent.
that's all I had.
We'll open it up for questions from other members of the, either two councils, and then Mayor Miller, did you want to
Yeah.
go first?
Sure.
Okay.
If you don't mind.
Absolutely.
I also want to
Thank you.
echo everything that you both have said so far. Thank you, Interim Chief Gary, for your information, your professionalism of this. I'm impressed by that as well. I'm also wanting to thank each and every one of you at the table here at the City of North Bend and the City of Snoqualmie for joining in on being together to listen, to hear, to be on the same plane, if you will, for the information flow. I really appreciate it. So I want to thank each and every one of you for that. I do have a couple of questions, maybe.
Okay.
Okay, well, I do have a question. On page number 13, where we talk about administrative services, I'm wondering in the future if we can possibly break that down to the cities, two separate cities, on how those public record requests are coming in. Is that even possible?
So I actually asked that question
Oh,
after the last council, I believe it was after the last council meeting where Mr. Gotthelf asked that same question.
okay,
That is a very difficult task to do
Okay.
because of the way, because some of our records requests may not be particular to a case. It may just be particular to an officer,
okay.
or for a piece of evidence or things like that. So it makes it a little more difficult. We're still exploring that avenue, but I think it would be very difficult to break it out, but I'm working on that.
Okay, well, I apologize for a big ask
No,
there.
that's okay. I had to ask the same question.
That's good.
Can I bring you back on
Councilmember
one question on that
Gottlieb.
real quickly?
Sure.
I guess some of these are pretty evident, but like public records requests, are those all police records or are those for the whole city?
That's just what comes to the police department.
Okay, thank you.
I think
Other
I'll pause on any
questions?
questions, so.
Other questions? Councilmember Jocelyn, Mayor Pro Tem Jocelyn.
Thank you, Chair. I want to make clear, I'm not here as Mayor Pro Tem. I'm Susan Torgerson, who was referenced. I'm an alternate for her on the Health and Public Safety Committee from North Bend because she wasn't able to be present. That's my role here today. The sign, which the mayor, I think, kindly brought along, should say simply council member. So I wanted to acknowledge your time and effort and appreciate very much the report. The framing is, of course, it's an annual report of your service to our communities. I wanted in particular call out your mention of crisis intervention training and your desire to see that all officers under your purview are exposed to that and go through that. And I'm very supportive of that notion and that it does lead to de-escalation and I think more positive outcomes going forward for generally everybody involved. So I want to thank you and let you know that I personally am very supportive of that idea. The question I would have is any updates on filling the mental health professional position for the police department?
So I'm in communication with our HR manager, and we're hoping to get something going sooner than later, and get that posted. And it'll be a process. It's a special position. It takes special qualifications, so we're going to be very picky, ultimately, to make sure we get the right person that fits our community. Because that person not only supports the community, it also supports the department and the city. Our previous one did trainings here, and for both cities and provided resources and things like that. So it's a very specific and special spot. So it's one of those that I would love to fill it tomorrow, but I want the right person for this job. And I'm willing to take the time to get there to do that. In the meantime, we have reached out to all of the resources that she has, such as the Recovery Navigator program, the mobile crisis team and any other organization that we've worked with in the past. And they're stepping up and helping us and filling those spots. It'll be nicer once we can get that right person for for what we need.
I couldn't agree more that it's both important and critical to fill it with someone who's the right fit. So thank you.
Much. Mr. Chambliss.
That recruitment is programmed to start this week. So
Thank you. Councilmember Cotton.
Oh,
No, go for it. Now go ahead.
Really, I probably had more comments than questions because this is very self-explanatory, and I'm really glad you took the time to explain some of the things like drops in certain rates and vice versa, about what you are attributing that to, because that's always the first thing I'm like looking at the data going, I wonder, could it be because, and I appreciate you taking the time to explain this and the presentation. And I do want to piggyback onto Chair Watton's comments. Having spent more than half of my life in public safety, I do really appreciate the ride-along concept. Well, having spent decades in the fire department, I have ridden along with Snowpo and had the opportunity to, see patrolling in both cities, as well as working with the mental health professional. And which, actually is sometimes a big part of police work is, dealing with the disturbances that are out there. So I do think that's a key resource for both police and fire, as far as dealing with those particular individuals as well. The last comment I wanted to make was, as I mentioned, having been a first responder here in the Valley for multiple decades, I have had the experience of, responding on violent crimes, major domestic violence issues, where we didn't always have the luxury of having a local police department where we could, head out, into the North Bend area and know that, the situation was being taken care of immediately, but because we, as the fire department and the medical responders, would have to stage until the scene was safe to go in. If there wasn't, officers on the scene, hopefully before us, taking care of that, we couldn't go in because it was unsafe for the responders, which totally was so frustrating with dealing with trying to save somebody's life. And so all I can say is I so appreciate how things have evolved through the years, and the foresight that the cities have and the police department has as far as providing these services to both of our communities. So thank you, Interim Chief Harisi.
Well, thank you. And I have to contribute a lot, like everybody in this room got the January statistic or our monthly report, and our priority one response time for North Bend was 2 minutes and 29 seconds for a priority one response. And I believe off of memory, the response time in Snoqualmie was 2 minutes and 40 something seconds. So that is phenomenal on a priority one call for everybody to be getting there and addressing the situations in both cities.
Thank you. Councilmember
Well,
Godhill.
I think some of my comments must have been answered before.
That's okay. Please ask.
There were a couple of things that just sat out in the statistics as we look at increasing things. And I didn't know if you had, suggestions on how we can attack them. The most important one is DV assaults. And, unfortunately, I think it could be the time, but, we're seeing increases there, increases on collisions, and then, the vehicle prowls. But shot flips were, great. So we came up with a solution with that. Do we have any other working solutions to help some of these others to bring them down as opposed to continuing to,
So in
See them
short,
go.
yes.
okay.
We are teaming up with Snow Valley Hospital, who is building a program to help educate on domestic violence.
Okay.
So the coordinator of that project is in constant communication with me, asking how we can move forward and what she can do to do that. And she's going to start holding classes and doing things like that. The other side of that with some of the others is just education. We're trying to push out more messaging through social media and things like that, to where we can just kind of do education on those things, and unfortunately collisions, we've got a lot of construction going on in the area, bypasses off of the highway. That all takes a toll on our community, whether they're trying to get around the 1890 interchange and they're coming into 202 and, and things like that. So it's just kind of one of those things. That one, as you can tell, kind of fluctuates a little bit. We're pretty steady, but it's a lot of just education. I know, signage and things like that for the construction, and I think both public works departments are phenomenal in helping us accomplish that messaging and letting people know when there's stuff going on in our communities as well. So I know we were asked earlier this year on one of the projects of how we can help mitigate some of the not stopping at the train tracks or the speeding in the area. And we would throw our speed trailer out there and just kind of give an idea of what's going on. And we gave them other ideas for the stops and stuff. So it's just a lot of education.
And should we be pushing, some of this messaging out as the cities for some of the, because I gotta assume some of like domestic violence, some of that also could be the time and the stress level people are on, political level. whatever.
Economics plays a huge part in that.
Right. So I'm trying to figure out what things we can do to make sure that people know where there's resources before they get to that point. So I don't know if there's something we should be doing as both cities, looking at ways to message out to say, hey, there's help here before it gets to the point that it gets.
And my message is if anybody has questions, concerns, something's going on at home, they can always reach out to us. Just because they come to us doesn't mean somebody's going to jail.
No, I understand. that.
We're here to educate as well. So that is a huge message that, the community should know. And I think they do know that, but in those circumstances, people become afraid.
In times like this, it's good to remind people.
Yes, Mayor Ross.
So when is the Snoqualmie Valley Health, when's that team? when's
She
that
was,
roll out?
she was hoping for mid-year to have a lot of her stuff going. She's also looking at adding so right now, for instance, if we had a sexual assault, we have to send people to Harborview for the examination. They're looking at doing that here. And in part of that, her grant funding covers the domestic violence stuff. So she's hoping to have a lot of stuff going by mid-year. She is a one-person show at the moment. But we are constantly in communication, and she actually wanted to participate in the North Bend Citizens Academy, but she had some conflicts that she couldn't get out of. So that was another way for her to start communicating and just pushing those messages out and give kind of timeframes.
Mayor Miller.
Interim Chief, is there a possibility that we can learn her name?
It's Catherine Thomas,
Thank you.
and I have her contact if anybody here would like to touch base with her.
I'd love that. Thank you.
Councilmember Christensen, I don't want to put you on the spot, but you're the only one who hasn't asked any questions or had any comments, and I want to give you that opportunity.
To be fair, I raised my hand, but you just.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I can confirm.
Yeah.
I couldn't see.
A lot of the comments that I had have already been said. I really appreciate that breakdown of the information. I'm gonna go back to that quick question that I had. So you were talking about the response time for Snoqualmie and North Bend, or did you call it an incident one?
The priority one.
Priority one. Could you just explain what that is?
So
Just
priority
so
one, a priority one call is anytime where there's the threat of life or death, or safety for somebody, such as a robbery in progress, even a burglary in progress, where it might be a home invasion type of thing. It also covers those collisions where, like a motor vehicle collision where there's injuries and things like that. And then, of course, anything that has a deadly aspect to it.
Thank you. And then the second question that I had, for those situations where the police are engaging in a chase, would assuming that there was like a pit stop or whatever, would those numbers then be included in use of force, or would that be found somewhere else?
That would be included somewhere else.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor Ross.
So I really appreciate both groups getting together, North Bend and Snoqualmie, to go over the annual report and have this type of discussion. And, our residents really, they love Snowpo because they're very approachable and visible in the community, especially at the different events. And also the no call too small. But also it's nice to see that the numbers are declining because you're visible in the community and they, it's either deterring crime or they call you. It's also nice to see that the numbers are declining, especially at the outlet mall, by having the presence there. So I think we're in the right direction. So thanks.
Excellent.
I
Is there
think that one should be our number one achievement for the year. The more I think about it, is a decline in our calls, our crime rates, everything. But those are fluctuating. So, but I do appreciate every one of your time and your support.
Excellent. Are there any other questions or comments as we come down to the end of our 50 minutes? Typically, this is 50 minutes long. Mayor Miller, I'm sorry.
I'll be brief. I apologize, but I don't know if I said thank you. And I want you to know that from my heart, I want you to all know, and like staff and all the officers out there on the field day in and day out, I really appreciate all of your efforts. So make sure that you can send that message home.
Thank you, and we appreciate it.
Excellent.
You.
Interim Chief Ferese, thank you very much for your report. I'm going to just summarize a couple things that I heard. One is that there seems to be a desire, and we'll continue to communicate on a quarterly basis, of bringing the two groups together, the two committees together, to have this kind of discussion. The second one is, and this is over to Mayor Ross and Mayor Miller under your direction, and that is as the two cities can communicate between the two cities in your public information officers, and being able to put out maybe joint statements, updates on both crime, especially as crime is decreasing. I think that would be really good for our citizens to know. And secondly is hitting on that point of domestic violence, DV, that the resources are there, because that's one way we can help lift up those issues that sometimes are really sensitive. People don't want to talk about it, but if we talk about it, then it makes it more acceptable. And it comes back to the de-escalation as well, is, these are the resources, these are the benefits to the public. And, we're incredibly blessed to have this local, very robust police department helping to keep our citizens safe, our communities safe, and we'll continue to see those numbers of incidents go down. So thank you very much. If there's nothing more to come before us, I will call for the adjournment unless there is a declining or there are other things to come before us. Hearing none, I will assume we are done for this evening. Thank you for being here. We are closed at 5:54 p.m.